Well, look at you coming back for part 2 of our Halloween Spooktacular grand finale.
Intriguing.
You know the jazz by now. We're covering what is known as the Lizzie Borden murders.
Bum bum bum!
And nothing has changed since the last episode. I'm still Kate, and the one who sticks by my side through thick and thin is still Nat.
Yep, that's me.
And this is definitely wading into the void.
Ka-chow.
Part 2, here we are. By the time you're listening to this, it's been, just about a week since we released part 1 of Lizzie Borden. I hope you're chomping at the bit to hear the theories and hauntings to go with this case. I mean, there are so many questions. Did Lizzie do it? If she didn't, then who did? Is the old Borden residence haunted? They're never ending. But I guess that goes hand in hand with a more than century-old cold case.
True.
But before we can cover those different theories and maybe answer a few of the proposed questions, I'm gonna let Nat take over the wheel and do our tarot and oracle readings. Take it away, Nat.
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, my friends. Whatever time it is for you when you're listening to this. I have a really quick reading today, and I think I also want to tell you a positive that I have.
Okay.
I'll start with my positive because I'm very, very excited about it. I finally have hot water.
Yes!
It's been literally over 2 months in this house without hot water. And if those of you don't know what that's like, just imagine freezing cold showers, or you have to boil a pot of water and sponge bathe yourself. Yes, imagine that for 2 months. Imagine how miserable that is, especially with it getting cold outside. So now,
I was just gonna say.
So they came and fixed my oil. They gave us oil, gave us a new oil tank. They didn't make sure that the water heater and everything were working. So my mom called them.
Lovely.
My mom gave them a little ring, and they came today.
Sure, she did.
And they fixed it. So I'm very excited to take a hot shower.
I'm excited for you.
Way too long. I've had 2 hot showers from one staying at my aunt's house and 2 staying at a hotel. Sit in between that time, and I mean Dylan hasn't. So I've had more hot showers than him. So tonight's probably gonna be absolutely amazing for both of us.
It's going to be
it's gonna be life changing. I'm on the brink right now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually pretty good. But
I just want the people that are listening, you don't know Nat's mother. But her mom.
If my mom
is a very small lady, but she can be very scary.
Imagine okay.
You don't want to be on the receiving end of that call.
You get a phone call, dread. Instant dread. Unless you're me, then it's oh, my mom. But it's
unless she's mad at you.
My mom is not ever mad at me, first of all. I'm a beautiful baby golden child. I don't do anything wrong.
Oh yeah, you say.
Well, no, that's just how my mom sees me. I don't know. She's just my biggest advocate right now. When my entire family so a couple months ago, I had a complete mental breakdown. And
yes.
was literally not myself. And my mom was the only person that wasn't what's wrong with you? She was you're gonna figure out what's going on, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. She's the only person who did that. And my dad even was what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with you. Stop. And that's how my sister was too, and that's fine if they don't understand. That's completely fine for them to react that way. But my mom was the only person defending me. and my actions and what I was doing and stuff like that. So,
I love
Mom,
that
if
for
you
you.
ever listen to the podcast, thank you. I love you. And I can finally say this without bawling my eyes out, because I tried to tell her that last week and started crying. But, yes.
Yeah. Here's a moment for all the moms.
Seriously.
You're awesome, you're great.
Seriously.
To my mother, if you also ever listen, I love you. Thank you for also sticking with me through my own mental breakdowns, because before I was medicated for my anxiety, I had one about every 2 months, and I would be a pitiful person.
Yeah.
You know, we have our moments where you yell at me, for example. Here's one for the listeners. I fell down the stairs once after we had an argument, and she was like, "There, that's what you get, you frickin' dumbass." And, you know, the issue isn't that she doesn't love me or she's cruel. It's just we act way too much alike. So, would I probably have said the same thing?
Yes.
Yes. But we all love our
Seriously.
moms. And if you don't love your
There's
mom,
probably a reason.
I'm sorry.
Whatever. But it feels like today's Mother's Day or something. I don't know. We
I
gotta
know.
love moms more than just one day a year. For real.
They literally birthed
They
us,
ruin their
like,
bodies for us. Like, I'm like,
trauma.
yeah, they literally traumatize themselves. I've got to go on another quick tangent.
And your body, like, codes your brain
Yes!
to forget that you went
Yes!
through trauma. I was just thinking about
It's
that this
fucking
morning, and why? I
horrifying.
have no idea. But I'm like,
your brain
no.
literally blocks your memory of having a baby so that you can have more babies. Because if you remember 100% everything, you would not have more children.
Never do it again.
That's why it's like, okay, well, what's the point of not having drugs while you're having a baby? Because you're gonna forget anyways. You're gonna forget anyways because you're so traumatized. So, I don't know, man.
I mean, like, make your choice on what you think is right
Yeah,
for you,
of
but
course.
you're not gonna peep me having, like, a quote-unquote
Natural
natural birth.
birth?
I do not think so.
I don't want to
No,
be going to
thank you.
therapy for that.
No. Mm-mm,
But
no.
it makes sense how postpartum depression is a thing and stuff like that. Like, it could probably be caused by that traumatizing situation. And I know a lot of it is just like biological, but that could definitely be a factor. So hug your fucking mom. No
Yes,
matter
hug your mom.
if she had a like a vaginal birth or a C-section or what have you, a surrogate, whatever. However, you were acquired as a baby.
And no, we're not talking dropped off by the stork. You know what? We'll just do this really quick and finish traumatizing our listeners by this point, and then we'll jump into Oracle and Tarot. Nat, what were you?
I was a C-section, and I almost died, and so did my mom.
I was a C-section, and I almost died, and so did my mom.
Maybe that's why we're so similar, because we started out with trauma. Like, literally, our baby souls were, like, vibing with Jesus at one point.
Literally me, though.
Jesus, like, we're like
I
Tisha
was
Paytas.
fucking vibing with Jesus.
Literally
From the moment I was freaking born. I mean, like, I don't necessarily believe in Jesus, but, like, technically I was vibing with him.
Yeah.
I'm a Christmas baby. So...
I thought you were saying, like, you were dead when you were born. I was like, oh, God.
No, I
She's,
was
like,
such
up on
a
the
little
cross.
brat. I
Sorry.
physically refused to come out.
Oh.
There was, like, nothing wrong with me. I was just like, no. Like, I was perfectly positioned and everything, and I was just like, no.
Yeah, that's how it was for me, too. They tried to give my mom medicine to induce the labor, but every time she would push, it would actually make my heart stop beating, because the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. So
I did not even have that. I was just a stubborn asshole.
I was just meant to die. I almost died like 3 times during the whole procedure. My mom almost died. She was bleeding out. They ripped out like all of her fucking organs to do it.
Oh, I know.
And The worst part is, I love my mom so much. I feel so bad for my mom. And this is like way more than the podcast really ever needs to know. So I'll spare you the gory, bloody details. But I was the last kid that my mom had. And my parents always wanted more children. But they couldn't because of how devastated her body was after having 2 C-sections.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors, like, malpractice, basically.
Yep.
And the anesthesiologist wasn't allowed to give her more medicine. And she said that she could feel me being ripped out of her.
Ooh, yikes.
So that's some horror. That's some real life horror for you.
Just positive. My parents saw me and they decided, yep, that's enough.
Yeah.
Go. Oracle and Tarot!
So yeah, the Oracle for today, we're going back to one that we did a while ago. We've only used this deck once, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is the Barbary Zodiac Oracle by Barbara Moore, and the artwork is by Paolo Barbary. And this deck is absolutely beautiful. I love this deck so much. So, the Oracle card for today is Venus. And it is like a beautiful green fairy woman. Look at this.
Oh.
Isn't that gorgeous? It's so beautiful. Oh.
I still look. Oh no, I love the wings.
Yes. They're so pretty. And it's like wings off of her arms instead of off of her back. I really like that. And let me take an individual photo of each of them. All right. So, Venus is associated with Venus, the planet, and also the goddess of love, fertility, and beauty. So, Venus is the Roman goddess. She's also Aphrodite in Greek mythology.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Venus is all about what you value, such as money and possessions, but also your ideals. Love, relationships, and partnerships are also indicated if the Venus card is revealed. So, love, possessions, money, ideas. All about value today.
Love it.
And that's it for that oracle. Like I said,
wow,
this is
she really is quick.
Really short and sweet. The next one is gonna be even freaking shorter, man. All right, ready? So,
if you can't tell, we're ready to jump in.
Yes. Not like we didn't just have a 20-minute long tangent. Just kidding. It was only like 3 minutes. Yeah. So, the tarot that we're doing for today is the Illuminated Tarot by Caitlin Keegan. And I think we've only used this one once as well.
Yeah.
And this one I decided to use today to follow up our History of Tarot episode, because this deck is playing cards as well. So it's kind of my most authentic tarot deck. Yes. And I never realized that. And this is a gift from my boyfriend, Dylan, for Christmas last year. I think it was last year.
Shouting out Dylan.
He deserves it, honestly. Okay. So we got the King of Clubs, which is the Magician. And it represents skill and transformation.
Okay.
That's it. Short and to the point. It's right, just skill and transformation. And so when we kind of look at the oracle and that together, we have skill and transformation and things that we value. And I think it's probably relating to how we value ourselves.
Yeah.
And our skills. And the transformation is maybe we're seeing a point of our skills that we can improve, or we're like, damn, I'm really good at this thing. You know? And that's kind of what I've experienced today is like, oh, I really want to become more organized. Like, I really like how it feels to be organized and have things clean and, like, organized around me. And I want that to be a normality in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's
Okay.
kind of what the card is saying, something similar to that.
I really like that. I wanna, for example, become a little bit more organized with my finances,
Mm-hmm.
because adulting.
Yes.
And yeah, are we ready to hop on in?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Everyone, we're doing it. We're doing the damn thing.
Let's go.
Andrew Borden, apparently he was a burden.
I mean, kinda.
When we left off last episode, Lizzie had just been acquitted of all charges accompanying the murder of her father, Andrew Borden, and stepmother, Abby Borden, due to lack of forensic evidence. Despite her not guilty verdict, many historians and those who study this case continue to believe that Lizzie got away with murder. In today's episode, we're going to explore a few different paths in an attempt to answer the question, did Lizzie Borden get away with the most violent crime?
Ooh.
Despite dozens of theories being proposed over the years, none have been confirmed. Nonetheless, we're going to try and determine the most plausible suspect for these murders. Without further ado, let's kick this episode off by submerging ourselves in the first theory. Lizzie Borden killed her parents with the help of her older sister, Emma.
And you know what? That's kind of what I first thought. But I also think all of these theories. So I don't even know what they are, and I'm like, I feel like I already thought of it.
But that's the thing with like a old cold case, you know, like so many things are plausible.
Like,
that,
I
you can't
really
definitively say one or the other.
Like, I really wish we would do JonBenet Ramsey, but it's really fucked up. And it's a child.
I plan to do it at some point.
Because I know,
not now.
Because we studied it immensely in my forensics class. And I can tell you, even though everyone thinks her parents did it, her family did it, her mom did it, they did not. They did not. They found semen, and it was no match or no effective identification if you want to be legitimate. Because match is not a word that's used in forensics.
Yes.
But
I have a theory of who I think it is, but I can't say it or else we could possibly get sued. So.
Oh, goody! Oh, yeah. That was one of the things that I also thought.
They didn't do enough DNA testing to effectively, like, rule him out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, But we'll leave it there until we actually cover JonBenet Ramsey.
Yes.
Because I do plan to do it. It is very heavy, so I am going to wait a hot minute. But back to the theory that Lizzie Borden and Emma killed her parents. Simply put, this theory examines the idea that Lizzie Borden and her sister Emma conspired together to murder their father and stepmother. First things first, what led up to Lizzie and Emma violently ending their parents' lives? It's no secret that there was an abundance of tension in the Borden home, specifically centering around one reason in particular: money and eventually inheritance. Nat's doing the money dance over here.
I did the money dance. I have to stand up because I have restless leg syndrome from my medicine.
Oh.
It's getting better, but
you gotta move.
I gotta stand or else it hurts.
Andrew Borden had written out his will and testament in addition to giving generous real estate gifts to his second wife, Abby Borden, and her sister. At this same time, Andrew Borden was forcing the members of his household, including Lizzie and Emma, to live frugally. Below their means, to put it bluntly. The girls had had enough of it, and in the end, demanded that their father show them the same level of attention and appreciation he did to his wife, which honestly isn't an unreasonable request.
No, honestly, it's not.
However, he did that, but it didn't quite work out in their favor. Andrew's relationship with his wife and his wallet drove a sharp wedge between him and his daughters. Others speculate that Andrew was actually physically abusive to his daughters in their younger years, and that their act of murdering him was some type of twisted revenge. But keep in mind that there's several points that go directly against this theory. One being that there was never any evidence that the girls were physically abused by their father. Lizzie was actually widely known as his favorite, and that he spoiled her significantly in comparison to her older sister, who didn't seem to mind because he allowed her independence. Emma was well known to be reserved and quiet, but frequently ventured out of the home and the town to visit friends and get a brief reprieve from her father's prudence at home.
So she was a little bit of a social butterfly with her friends?
Yes, with her close friends.
Yeah.
With the entire town, she was more reserved. But,
So
when
like
she met a person, she was like, yeah.
Okay, so she's like me, like an introverted extrovert.
Yes.
Okay.
Second is the fact that Emma had a rock-solid alibi on the day of the murders, considering she was more than 10 miles away from town that very day. She was actually hanging out with friends or family, so she had a good
alibi.
Yeah, a very good alibi. I have to admit this theory is actually my least favorite. It seems to me that this theory is, in place simply to remove all of the blame from Lizzie herself.
Basically, yeah.
Emma, although she might not have been her father's favorite, nor did she agree with his approach to life, the majority of the time had no reason to seemingly, or any desire really, to see harm come to her family.
And you know what? There is a bunch of Lizzie Borden movies. And I remember specifically one that I watched was one of the more popular ones. And it shows this theory. And it shows after Lizzie, like, quote unquote, kills her parents, her sister's like, you gotta take off your clothes and burn them and stuff like that. And yeah, it's lame.
They always try and find some way in those movies to really tie Emma in with it at the end. But
she, like, obviously is not involved at all.
No. Except maybe being like, gosh, I wish Dad, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
exactly. Nothing of any true malice.
No, I don't think so either.
Now we're going to move on to our next theory. And that is that Lizzie Borden alone murdered her parents in cold blood.
Okay. This
Unlike
is, like,
Emma,
the most popular one.
Yes. Unlike Emma, Lizzie appeared to have a personal aversion to her stepmother, which may have come from her feeling of being neglected after years of being her father's favorite. So essentially she was feeling like she was just replaced.
Yeah.
And that's never, like, a good idea. And good feeling, obviously. After all, if she was spoiled as a child, but as she got older, her father then directed more and more of his energy to his second wife, it's a no-brainer that Lizzie would get upset. There are noted reports that Lizzie, after a time, refused to call Abby mother and instead referred to her as Mrs. Borden, like we discussed in the last episode. As Lizzie got older, that divide continued to develop and began to include her father. There were numerous incidents Lizzie considered to be snubs growing up. Whether it be Andrew refusing numerous requests for Lizzie's hand in marriage because he thought they were after his money, shooting a nest of birds in the barn that Lizzie was nursing, or simply not showing the same generosity to his youngest daughter as he did his wife. Things seemed to pile up until Lizzie began turning her nose up at all the members of the home aside from her sister. There were a few accounts from neighbors and members of the Fall River community that damn Lizzie... Oh, let me... There are a few accounts from neighbors and members of the Fall River community that damn Lizzie, though, and play right into the theory that it was her that committed the murders. The first is that in the weeks leading up to the murders, Lizzie attempted to purchase arsenic from a local store.
Oh, for what reason?
She did not have a reason.
Uh-huh.
She was denied, of course, but this looked pretty bad in retrospect. Another fact is that a few days prior to the incident, all members of the Borden family...
Do we have the same blanket?
I think we might.
This is from Dylan's mom in Texas.
If she went to TJ Maxx, then it could be.
Probably. She's a TJ Maxx fiend.
Then I would say yes. This is from Elijah. She was denied, of course, but this looked pretty bad in retrospect. Another fact is that a few days prior to the incident, all the members of the Borden family were showing signs of toxic contamination, or essentially some type of poisoning. It was so bad that Abby Borden called a local doctor who himself quickly became suspicious that everyone but Lizzie was showing signs of severe food poisoning.
This is the one that was like, you're a woman. You have no opinion.
Yes.
Awesome. Love him.
But to his credit, it is very odd that everyone was sick aside from Lizzie. To many people looking in from the outside, Lizzie was frequently trying to distance herself from her family. She thought she deserved to be living a much more lavish lifestyle and always expressed a desire to move out of her home and up into the hill neighborhood where the wealthier members of her society resided. She wanted to fit in, and her father's ways of frugality simply weren't cutting it. Whenever she had the chance, Lizzie was away from her home and trying to spread her wings and expand her connections. But the link to her father, who was pretty strongly disliked in the community, was always holding her back and putting a wrench in her attempts to break away. It could be argued that the only way Lizzie believed she could get out was by killing her father, collecting her inheritance prematurely, and ensuring that she and her sister would get everything she thought she was owed by also taking care of her stepmother. And honestly, the case the prosecution built to put Lizzie behind bars was pretty strong and played directly off those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not too crazy. It's definitely happened before and will probably happen like multiple times more in the future.
Exactly. This theory and the idea that Lizzie took matters into her own hands is one that I can get behind. From a traditional crime lens, it just makes sense. But if you step back and look at the quote-unquote evidence gathered by the prosecution as what it was, which was all hearsay, then it could be a cut-and-dry case of framing someone for murder. There was no forensic evidence that linked Lizzie to the crime. None, nada, nothing. Could that partially be because the police allowed people to leisurely stroll through the crime scene? Absolutely. Could it also be that Lizzie simply didn't commit the murders? Also yes. All in all, Lizzie being the villain in this story is plausible, which makes her a prime suspect. But it could very easily be a way to try and close a case that the cops botched from the get-go. The third theory I have is a juicy one. And a lot of people show a bit of twisted interest in it. And this theory is that Lizzie and her lover, aka the Borden's household maid, committed the murders so they could finally be together.
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. Just gave me goosebumps.
I will admit that for the longest time, this was my favorite theory.
You know what it reminds me of? Is that, which episode did we do? Was it the Highlands episode?
Yes.
Of the two ladies?
Yes.
Yes!
So like I said, this was my preferred theory. Was being the key word.
Okay.
Now, I'm not quite sure where this theory began, but it's theorized that Lizzie was having an affair with Bridget, the Borden's maid. And one day, Abby discovered them in the midst of their lovemaking.
I mean, what are they doing it in the fucking house, man?
I don't know.
If it's an affair. They're kind of goofy. Well,
they never were allowed out the house. They were always busy.
True.
In this theory, Abby threatens to out their relationship to Andrew Borden, which prompted Lizzie to act quickly in an act of passion and bludgeon her stepmother before she had the time to tell her father.
Okay, but then why kill her father?
Maybe we'll get there.
Okay.
Now, there's no evidence that Lizzie and Bridget were sleeping together or involved romantically in any way. However, it is widely known that Lizzie notably changed her dress between the time she found her father and called the police. Other people also reported witnessing Lizzie burning something in the backyard around the same time. Could it have been a blood-soaked dress? Maybe even getting rid of part of the dismembered axe the investigators found in the basement. Then, there's the fact that Bridget did not hear Andrew Borden return home or get slain in the room practically right below her.
Yeah,
this is an old home where the walls are paper thin and a small creak can be heard from any corner of the house.
Yeah.
In contrast, Lizzie reported hearing Bridget shout upon discovering Abby Borden in the guest room upstairs, when Lizzie was elsewhere at the time. So, off the bat, immediately, we have conflicting stories.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a step back and really think on this time period, how did Lizzie that quickly change what she was wearing before the cops showed up? This is like, what was it, the 1850s? She has like a girdle. She's got on like a slip dress. Like, there's so many things that go into this outfit. It's not like today where she could just pull something over her head and then burn it in the backyard. Yeah. Like, she has to take numerous steps to undress, then start a fire, and then burn it. Like, the theory just, it doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is an attempt to distract from the actual case by introducing a secret love affair that most certainly was taboo at the time.
Mm.
Is this just a theory made up by someone who had too much time on their hands? Maybe. Regardless, do I love this theory? Duh.
This is probably my favorite one, too.
Who doesn't love a surprising lesbian love story twist?
Honestly, I've heard this before.
The answer to that question is psychopaths. That's who.
Well, yes, that's true. We love a gay romance and
yes, we do.
Plot twist. That's always my favorite.
In a wider turn of events, though, some people have taken it upon themselves to write fan fiction for this couple. Which, I don't even know where to begin unpacking that one, so I'm just not going to. I mean, why? But yes, I love this theory, even if I think it's a complete crock of shit. Like, the more I dove into investigating that theory, the more I found that it was just not plausible. Mm-hmm. It was just things filling in the gaps that anyone could think of. Like, it wasn't anything actually, like, plausible or realistic, I would say. A shorter theory, which I'd say is more of a dishonorable mention, if you will, before I get into what I think is the best theory of all, is that Lizzie and Emma's uncle, John Morse, committed the murders. He only began coming around and interacting with the girls many years after their mother, his sister, passed away. He wasn't involved much in their childhood and only began popping up when Andrew Borden was getting older and planning his last will and testament. In this theory, John Morse was essentially only coming around to try to get his hands on some of the fortune previously promised to his sister, and he attempted to do this by not only getting on Andrew Borden's good side, but by earning the favor of his nieces, which he appeared to be fairly successful in doing prior to the murders.
Mm-hmm.
There was a documented verbal brawl between Andrew Borden and John Morse regarding the will in the months prior to the deaths. And John even spent the night at the Borden home after showing up unannounced the night before. He then proceeded to leave early in the morning, seemingly to never return. In fact, it was his room that Abby was tidying up when she met her demise. Could he have come back into the house and decided to try and get his hands on the money through murder? Yeah, he probably could have. Do I think he should have been considered a suspect in this crime? For sure. Do I think he did it? No. I think he was a shallow money-grubbing git, but I don't think he was the one that actually killed the Bordens. Nothing was investigated in this case. The cops put, zero effort into it. They were just too stumped by the whole thing.
So, who the fuck is the killer? Jack the fucking Ripper?
Well, you see, that's where we have the great theory I'm gonna get into now.
Oh my god, okay.
One I had never heard of before. Not once, never heard of being mentioned. Until I did a lot of digging. And let me get a drink, wet my whistle, and we can go again.
So, is this the theory that you think is the most correct?
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
This is the theory I think takes the cake.
Okay.
Simply because of all the evidence you're going to see behind it.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm ready.
And please appreciate the effort I put in, because when I say this was a lot of digging, it involved me going through Ancestry.com, newspapers.com, and just digging.
What the fuck? She really said, Jinkies, I'm gonna solve this mystery.
I was like,
she
Velma
said,
who?
Velma who?
Now, like Nat just mentioned, we're getting into what I consider to be the smoking gun of all of these theories. One that should, without a doubt, have been investigated and is my personal favorite theory. The reported wild-eyed man, aka Andrew Borden's illegitimate and ignored son.
What?
Yes.
What?
Plot twist. Now, some of you might be saying, excuse me, what? He had a son? Yeah, he sure did. And this son ties together nearly every single loose end in this case up in a pretty little blood-red bow. These secretive answers can be found in a lovely book that I had the pleasure of pulling some of this information from. The book is written by Arnold Brown and is titled Lizzie Borden, The Legend, the Truth, the Final Chapter. So, shout out to Arnold. According to Arnold Brown, Andrew Borden might not have been as righteous as he made himself out to be, and fathered a bastard son to a woman by the name of Peace. Now, it's undisputed.
Sorry.
Yup.
That's so ironic.
Now, it's undisputed whether this illegitimate son name is Williams or Charles Borden. This is because at the time there was a law in place that the birth certificates of illegitimate children were to be sealed. I mean, you can't have those adulterous husbands getting caught, now can we?
Uh-huh.
For the sake of this theory, we're going to call him William, though. Because that is what I found him referred to in most of my research, was William. William was said to appear crazed and not of sound mind. I'm not saying he was psychotic. William was said to appear crazed and not of sound mind. I'm not saying he was psychotic, because at this time, if you looked at someone cross-eyed, they'd say you were, like, possessed by the devil or something. But for the sake of this, we'll say William had some internal trouble taking place. Maybe he was distraught that his father chose to pretend he didn't exist. In fact, everyone in the family reportedly knew he existed, but it was a cardinal rule that he was not to be discussed.
Why?
Because he was an illegitimate child and had no right.
Apparently.
Now, one thing to note is that William was said to have had an unfathomable hatred for Abby Borden, which most likely stemmed from his own mother's pettiness. This is because William was reportedly conceived between the time Andrew Borden's first wife, Sarah, passed away and before he married Abby.
Oh, that makes so much sense, though. Wait, was Lizzie born?
Yes, Lizzie would have been 2 at the time.
That makes so much sense. Because, like, imagine, you lost one of your children, you have this little baby, your wife dies.
Yep.
Who are you gonna rely on?
Exactly. William, and like I mentioned before, his thought process most likely stemmed from the angry ramblings of his mother. And William believed that Abby had taken the place of his mother, who should have been Andrew Borden's next wife. After all, Andrew did get her pregnant and leave her high and dry, so to be fair, the ideas William had were not ridiculous or misplaced at this time. Apparently, William was seen frequently in the area around the time of the murders, and this could be because Lizzie broke the rules and reached out to her half-brother regarding their father's will. You see, around this time, Andrew was reworking his will, with the aim of distributing his fortune in ways that Lizzie did not find favorable to her or her sister. So chances are, most of the wealth would fall in the hands of Abby and her family. Could it be that Lizzie contacted her brother in hopes that inserting him into the mix by force would make her father see reason and put his money in the hands of his quote-unquote true children?
Damn.
Whatever the reason was, William took the bait and came by the Borden residence. This was at the time that Andrew Borden had gone out for a walk. So while William was waiting, he had a rather unpleasant encounter with Abby Borden. She is said to have sparked his temper, sending him into a furious fit when she began mocking him, flat out telling him to save some time, that his father was never going to leave anything to him.
Damn, what the fuck, Abby?
You see, depending on what report you read, Abby Borden was either lovely or two-faced. So she very well...
I think a lot of people that are two-faced seem lovely.
Exactly. But to play the devil's advocate, she could very well have been trying to be kind to him and having him not embarrass himself in front of his absentee father. Maybe she was, from the kindness of her heart, just being like, look, it's not in your best interest, like, save yourself some time. Do I think that's probably what happened? No.
No.
I think she could have been being vicious. You know, you decide what story you want to tell where Abby's concerned. I'm not going to speak ill of the dead, especially someone that was literally murdered with a hatchet.
Brutally. Yeah.
Nonetheless, as a result of this, William took off. However, there were eyewitness accounts which were shared with the investigators that there was a deranged-looking man wandering around the neighborhood at this exact time who could be seen wielding either a hatchet or an axe.
Oh, shit.
Now, you tell me, how do you overlook that?
Yeah, how? What? Yes.
I've said before that I don't think eyewitness accounts are the most reliable. But if someone, or in this case, multiple people report seeing a suspicious man in the vicinity of the crime scene in the morning and later in the day, you think you'd look into the report. Especially when one of those witnesses was Lizzie Borden herself.
Oh my god. What? How did they not go after this guy? I don't understand.
The investigators never made an effort to further examine the wild-eyed man, who very clearly matched the description of William Borden. And to make it even better, these eyewitness accounts, these people did not speak to one another.
Oh my god.
So, after storming around for a while and being seen by several people, this theory says that William made his way back to the Borden residence, where Abby Borden dismissed him, and upon turning her back to him, William tracked her down, viciously bludgeoned her to death with the hatchet he carried at all times in a burlap sack.
I'm so sorry. This is just so fucking obvious.
But you see, why does he always carry a hatchet in a burlap sack?
He's been planning this shit.
No. If you think back to part 1, what did I tell you Andrew Borden did before he began his investment into furniture?
He's a carpenter.
Yes. The small side note is that William had this burlap bag and hatchet because he was a carpenter in the area.
Oh, so he took after
following
his dad?
into his father's footsteps.
Huh.
After killing Abby, William waited for his father to return home. And when Andrew finally made his appearance, William confronted him, just how he previously intended to. Unsurprisingly, Andrew was furious that this man, who he did not recognize as one of his own children, was in his home. This resulted in another argument, and just like his wife, Andrew Borden probably dismissed his son, choosing instead to lay on the couch and close his eyes from exhaustion. I mean, at this time, he is in his 70s, so chances are he tired easily, okay?
That's fucked up.
With his rage reignited, William once again removed the hatchet from his burlap sack and repeatedly hacked his father to death. After this, he fled the house. This is when more people saw an unidentified man spastically navigating around the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
As a result of her involvement and banking on the theory that the court would never incriminate a woman, Lizzie herself allowed herself to be named a suspect, never revealing that William was the actual killer. Apparently, she did that so she would, once she was acquitted, her and her sister would be the undisputed recipients of the Borden fortune. If she revealed that the true killer was, in reality, her secret half-brother, and he was somehow acquitted for the crime, there was a chance that she and Emma would have to split their inheritance.
True.
I will admit that last bit seems unlikely to me personally.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm going to rewind this theory and present an alternate ending of my own.
Okay.
I am by no means qualified to share any type of theory, so consider these rough thoughts.
Okay.
My idea is that everything up until Lizzie taking the fall for the murder could be 100% accurate. But
okay.
It is after that my alternate proposal comes into place.
Alright, lay it on me.
After the investigators came onto the scenes, things immediately became disheveled. Citizens and reporters were stomping through the Borden residence, disturbing the crime scene, and destroying any viable evidence that there could have possibly been. I speculate that despite the brutality of the crime, the police didn't give the case their undivided attention and effort because virtually no one in the community, possibly including the cops, cared at all for Andrew Borden.
I mean, honestly, yeah.
They saw him as a sleazy businessman and probably thought Fall River, Massachusetts was better off without him. His wife Abby was just a tragic victim in an act of vigilante justice.
Damn.
The investigators knew instantly, once things started to pick up in the newspaper and on national news, that they needed to do something to cover their asses in this situation once they realized the actual scope of the crime, and decided that they needed a scapegoat. Someone that would fit the bill of a determined killer, someone who was known to have a serious rift and dislike for members of the Borden family. This couldn't just be any member of the town. It had to be someone with a personal connection to the Bordens and their own vendetta. Perhaps they could plant this on Andrew Borden's business partner. But that could ruin another man's life, and they didn't need that.
No.
What if instead they placed the blame on someone that was less influential and their arrest wouldn't have much of an impact on society? Better yet, someone in the house at the time of the murders. Then they had it.
Who's a woman?
The perfect suspect, who apparently didn't get along with the woman in charge of the residence, was feuding with someone who used to show them a significant amount of affection, someone who was quickly at the age of 32 becoming a spinster who would have little to offer. They had the perfect suspect right under their nose the entire time. Lizzie Borden.
This is why I hate, like, authorities in, like, really old cold cases. Because they just do shit like this all the time.
Exactly.
Literally all the time. And they just suck. They are just the worst cops. They are so bad. They don't understand anything about forensics or anything.
Oh, I know. In my opinion, this is why all the evidence presented against Lizzie was hearsay, and why the investigation pointedly ignored all other aspects, including the hatchet-wielding madman literally witnessed in the area the day of the murder. Nonetheless,
that's just crazy.
After Jesus. Cut that. Nonetheless, after an unsuccessful trial, the Borden murder case is still one of the most fascinating cold cases in the history of the United States and in all of true crime.
It really is.
But with a case this jam-packed with loose ends, evidence being lost to time, and nearly all of our information on the case coming from personal accounts and journalistic newspaper articles, we will most likely be left to speculate this one for years to come. Who knows, maybe one day we'll have the answer to what actually occurred on August 4th, 1892. Maybe not, time will tell. And hopefully it'll reveal more than it has in the past 100 years.
Honestly, do you ever... I find myself wishing that I could time travel so much to solve cold case. Like, I really just want to know who Jack the Ripper is, who killed JonBenet Ramsey, who actually killed Lizzie Borden's parents. Like, all of those things. I need to know. Like, it kills me that we don't know the answers to these.
I agree. And I think that's why in my notes I said, and I quote, "After all, Father Time is one fickle bitch."
Literally. Literally. I mean, if anybody had a time machine, that they would love to just figure out this stuff. And everybody would be interested in hearing it.
I know! But there are some things that even time can't stop.
Yeah.
Like the possible hauntings that take place on 92 2nd Street.
Let's go.
You see, I'm not someone that likes to go back on my word. But I'm not going to cover the hauntings and happenings in the Borden house this episode.
Oh?
I just don't think it's fitting for this type of episode.
Yeah.
The next episode, however...
Oh?
Yes, if you can hear it in my voice, I'm smirking. The next episode we're going to cover is actually part 3 of our segment on the Borden murders.
Our very first
three-parter, my dudes!
And it's such a good one. It's such a good topic. It's so interesting. And we get to hit every single thing that we like to talk about in this podcast. We got our true crime. Yes. We got our conspiracy theories. We got our fucking hauntings. We got every single thing. Like, we should be marketing the shit out of this right now.
I mean, what even? Who would have thought it? I mean, hell, I didn't even think this topic would reach 2 parts.
Yeah.
But, like, every time I look more and more, research and information just pops up. And I'm not mad at it.
No, it's just crazy. It's just crazy that there's still people out there who are, like, demonizing Lizzie Borden when it's so apparent that it just wasn't her. Like, I want a scientist.
Whether it's the wild-eyed man or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. It had to have been somebody else because of how brutally they were attacked. Like, I don't think that she was that strong of a person. Like, I want a scientist breakdown of the actual murder. How much force was needed, how much this, how much that, you know, how tall was the person. Which they would be able to tell all of that from their bones. So
it's true.
I don't know.
I do assure all of you listening, though, that part 3 will be the final episode focusing on the Borden case.
They're like, enough, Lizzie Borden. No, I'm just kidding.
Whether it makes you happy or sad, it's the truth of it. Like,
no, it makes me sad. I love this topic. I think it's so interesting. It's so interesting.
So, before I wrap this one up fully, what do you think of my theory? I am in no way, like, a criminologist, right?
No,
or, like, a forensic investigator.
I think your theory is probably the most accurate out of the theories we talked about.
Like, it incorporates the witness sightings, you know, whatever. But I personally think the idea that Lizzie Borden did this is just a crock.
It did not happen. Yeah.
It does not fit to me whatsoever.
No.
However, I can and do believe with all of my heart, and maybe it's the feminist side of me coming out, or maybe it's the person that literally listens to too much true crime, that the police, there is very clear evidence that the investigators did little to nothing to try and protect the crime scene, any forensics, any type of evidence they had.
Yeah.
And it was just botched from the start.
It was like 1850, right?
Yeah.
Or around there.
Like, so, it was just not good.
Yeah.
Now, if this still isn't enough Lizzie Borden for you, you can come and chat about us with it on our Discord server.
Yes.
And we actually have one of our friends who shared her own personal account of visiting the Lizzie Borden house.
Yes. Yes,
included
she did.
pictures and personal, like, experiences and feelings from the location.
Yes,
so
definitely come join the server and read all about it. And maybe we can all get in a voice chat at some time and talk about it.
And just chat Lizzie Borden.
Yeah.
And the offer still stands that if you have a personal story from the Lizzie Borden house that you want to spread around town, send it into our email.
waitingintothevoid@gmail.com. Please.
Do it.
Do it.
If you want to stay up to date on all things Waiting into the Void, you can follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and TikTok at
Waiting into the Void.
And on Twitter at
Wade into the Void.
We share some fun reels and overall exciting content, so come join in on the fun.
Yes, it's so much fun.
We're also on Patreon for anyone who might want to donate some extra cash. Nat, do you want to tell our listeners just how they can find us and support us if they're interested in doing so?
Of course. So, if you want to find us on Patreon, all you have to do is search our name in the address bar. We are the first and probably the only people that come up because of our name being so unique and amazing. But if you want to support us on Patreon, we are currently not doing much with the tier rewards. Which
we are just existing.
We are just existing at the moment. We do have plans, obviously, for the future. But as you could see, like, as you're reading the rewards. However, we're not doing it just quite yet. But if you want to donate to us without expecting anything else in return besides awesome content, then you can donate to us through Anchor. And Anchor is also an affiliate of Spotify, so our link to the Anchor donation is also on Spotify. So it works exactly the same as Patreon. You just don't expect anything from us, and you just give us money.
Think of us as a startup for now.
Exactly. We are in our infancy stage still. We've grown so
very much. So.
We've grown so much. Like, it's
very
crazy.
rapidly. It's
very
honestly
rapidly.
Kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. But if you are a little bit unsure, you don't want to give us some money yet, just, follow us on Instagram and tell people about us. Word of mouth is the greatest value. Shouting back to our Oracle of Tarot, our value is in word of mouth and sharing us with other people. So that maybe at some point down the road, somebody will join us and join our community and want to give us money, which would be amazing because then Katie and I could quit our jobs and do what makes us happy and not be miserable. But yeah.
Oh. Yes, everything that Nat just said. Except my job doesn't make me completely miserable, so.
Yeah, mine neither. But
nonetheless, Phantom Fam, until we dive into part 3, don't carry an X with you everywhere, especially in a potato sack.
Fucking weirdo.
Don't go begging to your sort of family members to be written into their will.
That's just fucking weird. Seriously.
And I cannot stress this enough. Don't murder your family if they find about your secret gay love affair.
Seriously. I mean, I can understand it in some cases. But it's still really bad. Don't do it.
Don't
Shame.
do it.
Shame.
Shame.
Boo. Period. Period. Period.
And for our other not English language sign off for this week.
Oh my lord.
We have in French. Au revoir et belle toi.
Bye, because I'm English.
Goodbye.